My name is Natalie Mercer. I'm 31 years old, and the exact moment my relationship ended did not feel dramatic at first. It felt quiet. I was sitting at my desk, halfway through reviewing quarterly reports, when my phone lit up with a message from Mason, my boyfriend of 2 years. I think maybe we need to break up. This isn't working anymore. I stared at it for maybe 30 seconds. Not because I was devastated, not because I couldn't breathe, not because my whole world shattered. I stared at it because, for the first time in months, I felt something dangerously close to peace. Mason had been using this move for a long time. Every few weeks, whenever he didn't get what he wanted, he reached for the same threat: distance, silence, emotional withdrawal. Some version of maybe we shouldn't be together then. He never said it cleanly. He always dangled it like bait, waiting for me to rush in and prove him wrong. The last time was because I couldn't take off work to go to one of his friends' random Wednesday pool parties. Before that, it was because I said I didn't want to spend nearly $1,000 on a weekend trip he planned without asking me. And every time I had done what he wanted, I called, I explained, I soothed, I folded. So when that text came through, I think some part of him expected the same thing again. A frantic call, a paragraph about how much I loved him, a promise to do better, even though I was never quite sure what better meant anymore. Instead, I typed, "I agree. Your stuff will be on the porch in an hour." I hit send before I could second guess myself. The typing bubble appeared almost instantly, disappeared, came back, and then my phone started exploding. "Wait, what? Natalie, come on!" I was joking. "Babe, I was upset. Call me right now. This isn't funny. I was testing you. Testing me." There it was. Plain, ugly, undeniable. I put my phone on silent and got up from my chair. Then I started packing. Not my files, not my laptop. Him. 2 years of Mason gradually moving into my home without ever fully admitting he lived there. His shoes by the entryway, his expensive hair products taking over my shower, his jackets on the dining chairs, his supplements lined up across my kitchen counter like decorative clutter pretending to be ambition. I started in the bathroom. His electric razor, his cologne, his skin products that cost more than mine, and somehow still left him looking permanently dissatisfied. 3 different shampoos, a drawer full of grooming tools. The medicine cabinet, once mine, now looked like a display shelf for a man who loved the performance of self-care more than actual maturity. Then the bedroom, his clothes, his watch box on my dresser, the extra pillows he insisted made the room look more elevated, even though they ended up on the floor every night. The fake plant he bought because he said my room needed more masculine balance, which was ironic because nothing had drained the softness from that room more than his presence. Then the living room, his gaming headset, his yoga mat he used twice and then abandoned, the stack of books he displayed but never opened, the stiff throw blanket he bought because it matched the aesthetic, the framed photo from his cousin's wedding. I paused when I picked that one up. He looked incredible in the picture, relaxed, confident, charming. I looked beautiful too, and somehow still tired. That was the strangest thing about relationships like ours. From the outside, nothing looked wrong. If someone had taken a snapshot at the right angle, we looked polished, enviable, stable. But I remembered that night clearly. I remembered smiling with a glass in my hand while Mason disappeared twice to take calls outside. I remembered him snapping at me in the car because I didn't laugh hard enough at one of his jokes. I remembered going to bed feeling like I had failed some invisible exam I hadn't known I was taking. I set the photo face down in the box and moved into the kitchen. His protein powders, his overpriced coffee pods, the juicer he begged me to let him buy and used exactly twice before deciding it was too much cleanup, the barware he only liked because it photographed well when he posted drink stories online, the air fryer he swore would change our lifestyle and then abandoned after one batch of undercooked wings. 45 minutes later, I had 6 boxes and 3 large trash bags lined up by the door. Neat. Labeled. Final. My phone screen looked like a disaster zone. 47 missed calls, more texts than I bothered counting, 2 voicemails, and a string of messages escalating from panic to anger to wounded entitlement. "You can't do this. You're overreacting. It was a joke. I basically live here. I help with groceries. Natalie, answer me." He did not pay rent. He occasionally paid for groceries, and by occasionally, I mean in a way that felt generous only if memory loss was involved. I carried everything outside and stacked it on the porch. Then I took a photo and sent one final text. Everything's outside. Please collect it within 2 hours, or it goes to the curb. That was when the messages changed tone. I'm coming over. We are talking about this. Open the door when I get there. I read that and actually laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so perfectly him. Even now, even after sending the breakup text himself, even after admitting it was a test, he still thought the next scene belonged to him. He still believed he got to decide the tone, the timing, the terms. 20 minutes later, I heard tires screech into my driveway. Mason's car stopped crooked, half over the edge of the pavement. He got out before the engine fully died, already crying, already furious, already performing like the world had wronged him. He stormed up my walkway and started pounding on the door. "Natalie, open up!" I stayed where I was, in the hallway, just far enough back that he couldn't see me through the glass. "Your things are on the porch," I said through the door. "Take them and go." "This is insane." "No," I said calmly. "What's insane is texting me that we should break up and then acting shocked when I agree. I didn't mean it like that." "How did you mean it?" Silence. Then louder. "You know how I meant it." That answer said everything. He rang the doorbell, pounded again, then glanced up at the camera. "Good." "Take your things and leave," I said. "If you stay, I'll call the police for trespassing." That lit a match. He grabbed the nearest box and threw it against my front door. The sound cracked through the whole entryway. My pulse jumped, but my voice did not. "Thank you," I said. "Thank you," I said. "That's on camera, too." "That's on camera." For 1 second, he froze. Then he did something I didn't expect. He sat down on the porch steps and called his mother on speaker. Of course, on speaker. "Mom," he said, voice shaking, "she's throwing me out. Over a text." His mother's voice came through thin and concerned. "What text?" Mason hesitated. That was the moment I knew even he heard how ridiculous this sounded out loud. "I said maybe we should break up," he muttered. But I was joking. The silence on the other end was immediate. Then she said his full name in that flat, disappointed tone only mothers seem able to perfect. "Mason." He tried again, smaller this time. It was a test. Another silence. Longer. He stood up, paced once, raked a hand through his hair. I could almost feel the humiliation hitting him in waves now. Not because I had rejected him, but because someone else had heard it and not taken his side. Finally, his mother sighed. "Come home," she said. "We'll talk there." Then she hung up. I stood in my hallway, staring at the door, and let out a breath I felt like I had been holding for half a year. That should have been the end of it. A breakup text, a bluff called, some boxes on a porch, a man collecting the consequences of his own message. But as I watched Mason remain there for another full minute, shoulders tight, face wet, eyes dark with something much meaner than heartbreak, I realized something that made the room go cold around me. He was not embarrassed because he had lost me. He was furious because his control hadn't worked, and men like that rarely leave quietly. The first night after Mason left my porch, I slept better than I had in months. Not peacefully, not happily, but cleanly. No tension in my chest, no replaying conversations in my head, no wondering what version of him I'd wake up to the next day. Just silence. That silence lasted less than a day. By the next morning, the messages started again. Different tone this time. Less anger, more confusion, a kind of frantic softness that felt rehearsed. "I didn't mean it like that. You know I love you. Why are you doing this? We need to talk like adults." I didn't respond because we had talked like adults. He said we should break up. I agreed. That was the most adult conversation we'd ever had. By midday, the messages shifted again. Faster, sharper, less controlled. "You're seriously throwing away 2 years over a misunderstanding? You're overreacting. This is insane." I muted the thread, blocked his calls, and went to work. That was when the escalation really began. The first late-night stunt came 2 days later at 2:07 a.m. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, lighting up the room just enough to pull me out of sleep. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something in my gut told me to check. Mason. We need to talk. Something's wrong. I think I need a doctor. I stared at the message, still half asleep. Me. Then call emergency services. 3 dots. Then, no, I need you. My chest has been tight for an hour. I'm scared. That woke me up fully, but not in the way he wanted. I sat up, leaned back against the headboard, and read the message again. Slowly, carefully, not with panic, with clarity. Because even in that moment, dark room, silence pressing in, I didn't feel fear. I felt calculation. Me. If this is real, call 911 or go to the ER. I am not the person to contact anymore. A pause. Then, you're really going to make me do this alone? I stared at that line for a long second and typed back. You broke up with me, remember? If this is medical, get medical help. And that was it. Silence. No follow-up. No update from an ER. No emergency. Just gone. Of course, there was no crisis. The next phase came fast. Public, loud, performative. By noon the next day, my phone started buzzing again. Not from Mason this time, but from notifications, tags, mentions, messages from people I hadn't spoken to in weeks. I opened Instagram and there it was, a crying selfie of Mason, eyes red, face tense, one hand half covering his face in a pose that looked almost staged. The caption read, "When you give someone 2 years of your life and they throw you out like trash over a misunderstanding." I didn't react immediately. I just watched. The comments flooded in. Men are trash. You deserve better, King. She never deserved you. Stay strong. Then I saw a familiar name. Carlos, one of our mutual friends. His comment sat quietly in the middle of the noise. Didn't you break up with her, though? No emojis. No aggression. Just a question. The post disappeared within the hour. Deleted. Like it had never existed. But screenshots don't disappear, and neither do impressions. He tried a different angle after that. Possessions, claims, tiny accusations designed to pull me back into a conversation. You still have things that belong to me. I read the message and didn't answer. Another came. My grandfather's watch. I blinked. What watch? Me. Be specific. No answer, because there was nothing to be specific about. Then he tried again. You owe me money. I almost smiled at that. For what? I typed. Nothing. Silence again. So I sent one final message. Everything you left here was placed on the porch. You threw a box at my door and left with it. I have footage. Stop. Read. No reply. For a brief moment, I thought that might be it. That maybe, just maybe, he had burned through his options. I underestimated him. Badly. Because the next move wasn't emotional. It was calculated and illegal. It happened mid-morning, 2 days later. I was at my desk halfway through a call when my receptionist patched something through to my phone. Hey, Natalie, your doctor's office says it's urgent. That was enough to spike my attention. I excused myself from the call and picked up. Hello? A pause. Then a voice I knew instantly. Mason. Soft, careful, trying to sound official and failing. Hi, this is regarding your recent test results. I cut him off. Impersonating medical staff is illegal. Silence. Then the act dropped. Natalie, I just needed you to talk to me. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. There it was again. Not regret, not apology, just entitlement. You don't get access to me anymore, I said evenly. Next contact goes through a lawyer. You can't threaten me. I'm not threatening you. A pause. Then, sharper. I know things about you. I almost laughed. What things? Another pause. Longer this time. Then, your browser history. That did it. A short, quiet laugh slipped out before I could stop it. Cooking videos and workout clips, I said. Terrifying. He hung up. That should have embarrassed him, slowed him down, forced him to step back and reassess. It didn't. By the end of that same week, he had already moved on to something worse, something physical, something public, and something that made it very clear he wasn't trying to fix anything anymore. He was trying to force it. The first time Mason showed up in person after that call, it wasn't at my house. It was at my gym. 6 in the morning, half the lights still dimmed, that quiet, focused energy where everyone is too tired to perform and too committed to care. My space, or at least it used to be. I was midway through a bench press set when I noticed movement near the front desk. At first, I didn't think much of it. Just another early riser trying to sort out a membership issue. Then I saw him, Mason, leaning casually against the counter like he belonged there, like nothing had happened, like we hadn't just ended 2 years of something that now felt more like a slow negotiation than a relationship. I racked the bar slowly and sat up. Then I saw what he was doing. He wasn't talking to the receptionist. He was pointing at me. A minute later, one of the staff members approached me, polite but uncertain. "Hey, Natalie," she said. "This guy says he's your boyfriend and lost his access card. Can you confirm?" I wiped my hands with a towel and looked past her, straight at Mason. He smiled, not apologetic, not nervous, confident, like this was a move. "Ex-boyfriend," I said calmly. "We broke up 4 days ago." There was a shift, subtle but real. The staff member nodded, then turned back toward the desk. Mason didn't like that. He stepped forward. "Babe, don't do this," he said, louder now. "You know I didn't mean it like that." I stood up slowly, no rush, no emotion. "You texted me that you wanted to break up, Anisha," I said. "I agreed. That's the end of it. It was a test. I'm not participating." That word hit him, participating. Because suddenly, it wasn't emotional anymore. It was procedural. He wasn't heartbroken. He was being denied access. "I just want to talk," he said, voice tightening. "You had that option," Shixing, I replied. "You chose a performance instead." A few people had started glancing over. Nothing dramatic. Just enough for him to feel it. That loss of control. That shift in narrative. "Sir," the staff member said gently but firmly, "if you're not a member, I'm going to have to ask you to step away." Mason looked at her like she had just insulted him. "I've been coming here for 2 years," he snapped. I almost corrected him. He hadn't. He had signed up on a membership I paid for and shown up maybe 3 times. But I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. "Sir," she repeated, firmer this time. Security appeared within seconds. That was new. That was escalation, and Mason felt it. "Seriously?" he scoffed. "You're kicking me out?" "No," I said quietly. "Your behavior is." He looked at me then, really looked, and for a split second I saw it. Not sadness, not love, not even anger, something sharper, humiliation. Then it twisted into blame. "Unbelievable," he muttered as security escorted him out. "You're really going to ruin everything over nothing." I picked up my water bottle. "Over nothing," I echoed softly, and went back to my workout. That should have been a line, a clear boundary, a moment where any rational person would stop, reassess, and step back. Mason wasn't rational anymore. He was reactive, and reactive people don't stop when they hit resistance. They escalate. By that afternoon, I got a call from someone I hadn't expected. Brittany, one of Mason's closest friends. I almost didn't pick up, but curiosity got the better of me. "Natalie," she said the second I answered, "you need to take him back." I leaned back in my chair, stunned. "Why?" There was a pause. Then, like she was exhausted just saying it, "He's been sleeping on my couch for 3 days. He won't stop talking about you. He's crying. He's not eating properly. He's a mess." I let that sit for a moment, not because I felt guilty, but because I wanted to understand something. "Brittany," I said calmly, "he broke up with me." "I know, but no," I cut in gently. "He made a decision. I respected it." He didn't mean it. That doesn't make it less real." Silence. Then she tried a different angle. "He said you're being cold, that you didn't even try to fight for him." There it was. The script. The expectation. I exhaled slowly. Healthy relationships don't require tests, I said, and they definitely don't require me to beg someone to stay after they tell me they want to leave. He's talking about doing something dramatic, she said quickly. Like, really dramatic. I tilted my head slightly. Like what? Another pause. Then, he bought a ticket to go see his ex. I blinked once. That was new. Not surprising, but new. Okay, I said simply. That's it? She asked, incredulous. You're just okay with that? Yes. You don't care. I thought about that. Care. Did I care? Or was I just finally done? He's single, I said. By his own choice. That's not how he sees it. That's not my responsibility. There was a long silence on the line, then her voice softened. He really thought you'd fight for him. I smiled faintly. He thought wrong. He never went to see his ex. Of course he didn't. That was never the point. The ticket was bait, another move, another attempt to provoke a reaction, to pull me back into the game. But games like that only work if both people are playing, and I had already left the board. Or at least, I thought I had. Because what came next proved something I hadn't fully accepted yet. Mason wasn't trying to win me back anymore. He was trying to rewrite the story, and if he couldn't control me, he would try to control how everyone else saw me. Over the next week, the shift happened in layers. Small, controlled moves that, on their own, might have looked harmless, but together they painted a very clear picture. Mason wasn't trying to talk to me anymore. He was trying to manage perception. The first sign was how often he started showing up at places he knew I'd be. Not directly approaching me, not immediately, just appearing. Game night at Carlos's apartment. I walked in, took 2 steps, and saw him already there, leaning against the kitchen counter, laughing too loudly at something that wasn't that funny. He turned when I entered, froze, then smiled like it was coincidence. Oh, I didn't know you'd be here. Carlos from across the room visibly winced because he had told Mason not to come. Explicitly. I didn't engage, didn't greet him, didn't react. I just walked past, grabbed a drink, and joined another conversation. But I could feel it, that low, constant awareness of being watched, of being waited for. It happened again 2 nights later at trivia night at our usual bar. Same pattern, same smile, same fake surprise. What are the odds? The odds were exactly 1 Instagram story. He had posted he was going. I just hadn't checked. That one was on me. So I adjusted. I stopped posting my location, stopped tagging places, stopped making my life easy to track. But he adapted faster than I expected. That Saturday, he showed up at beach volleyball too. No posts, no tags, just a casual plan between friends. He still found out. That was when I understood it wasn't coincidence. It was information flow. Someone was telling him, or he was asking around until he got answers. Either way, it stopped being uncomfortable and started becoming deliberate. Each time, he didn't confront me directly, at least not at first. Instead, he worked the room one person at a time. Quiet conversations, soft tone, carefully chosen words. I only knew because people started coming to me afterward. Hey, is everything okay between you two? He said there was a misunderstanding. He seemed really upset. I would nod and keep it simple. He broke up with me, I'd say. I agreed. That was it. No drama, no counter story, just facts. But Mason didn't stick to facts. He escalated. Every time he told the story, it changed slightly. Version 1. I made a joke and she overreacted. Version 3. I was trying to communicate my feelings and she threw me out. Version 5. She made me homeless. Version 10. She planned it. She wanted me gone. There's probably someone else. That last one almost made me laugh. The only other thing in my life was my couch, my work, and a level of peace I hadn't realized I was missing. Carlos called me after one of those nights. You need to know what he's been doing, Issa, he said. I already did, but I let him talk. He's going from person to person, Carlos continued. Retelling the story. Every time it gets more dramatic. I leaned against my kitchen counter, phone tucked between my shoulder and ear. Are people believing him? Not really, he said. Not the ones who know both of you. That mattered more than I expected. Some are just uncomfortable, he added. It's a lot. I know. There was a pause. Then, he's not okay, Nat. I closed my eyes briefly. I know. But that didn't change anything. The next escalation crossed a line. Work. Not inside. He'd learned that lesson, but outside, parking lot, across the street, sitting in his car, waiting. The first time I noticed, I told myself I might be imagining it. The second time, I wasn't sure. By the third, there was no doubt. Same car, same spot, same timing, lunch break, every day. He didn't approach, didn't wave, didn't message, just sat there, watching, waiting for an opening, a moment of weakness, a chance encounter he could spin into something else. Security noticed before I said anything. Do you know that guy? One of them asked me casually. I followed his gaze, saw the car, saw Mason inside. Still. Yes, I said. There was a pause. Do you want us to handle it? I considered that for a second, then shook my head. Not yet. Because I understood something in that moment. If I escalated too early, he'd pivot, change tactics, disappear just enough to stay under the line. I needed clarity, a pattern, something undeniable. I didn't have to wait long. The next day he upgraded. Same car, same spot. But this time when I walked out for lunch, he stepped out too, holding a sign. White poster board. Black marker. Simple. Let's talk. People noticed. Of course they noticed. Co-workers slowed down, glanced, whispered. A few phones came out. Not many, but enough. That was the point. Public pressure, public narrative. If he couldn't reach me privately, he would create a scene where I had to respond. I didn't. I walked past him, didn't look, didn't stop, didn't acknowledge. Inside, my hands were steady, my breathing controlled, and my mind was sharp, because now it wasn't messy. It wasn't emotional. It wasn't even confusing. It was a pattern, and patterns can be documented. That afternoon, I walked into HR calm and prepared, with dates, times, descriptions, not accusations, not feelings, facts. They listened carefully, took notes, asked questions. Then one of them said, "We can involve security or law enforcement if you want." I nodded once. "Next time," I said, because there would be a next time. I was sure of it, and I was right. The very next day, same place, same timing, different sign, bolder, bigger letters. You can't ignore love. That was when I stopped waiting. Security called the police. And as I stood there, watching from the glass doors while everything unfolded outside, one thought settled in my mind with absolute clarity. This wasn't about love anymore. It wasn't even about me. It was about control, and the moment control is challenged. People like Mason don't just lose, they break, and broken people don't always go quietly. The police didn't arrest Mason that day. They warned him, firmly, publicly, officially. And for a moment, I thought that might be enough. That hearing the words harassment and documentation from actual officers might finally snap something into place. It didn't, because people like Mason don't respond to consequences the way you expect. They don't step back. They look for loopholes. The next time he tried to reach me, it wasn't directly. Of course it wasn't. It came through someone else, a number I didn't recognize. A message that started with, "Hey, I think there's been a misunderstanding. I almost deleted it. Almost." But something told me to read, so I did. "My name is Trisha. I'm seeing Mason. He said you've been harassing him, and I just think we should talk like adults." I stared at the screen, then leaned back slowly in my chair. There it was. The rewrite. The inversion. He couldn't win the story as it was, so he flipped it. I wasn't the one being followed. I was the one doing the following. I wasn't the one being cornered. I was the one refusing to let go. I typed back, "If you want clarity, you can come by tomorrow. 6 p.m. She replied immediately, "Thank you. I just want to understand the truth." So did I. She arrived exactly on time, knocked once, polite and controlled, nothing like what I had just spent the past week dealing with. When I opened the door, the first thing I noticed was her posture, confident, prepared, like someone walking into a confrontation she thought she understood. "Hi," she said. "I'm Trisha." "I know," I replied. "Come in." She stepped inside, scanning the space briefly. My space. Quiet, clean, undisturbed. No signs of chaos. No signs of obsession. No signs of whatever version of me she had been told to expect. We sat across from each other. She didn't waste time. "Mason told me everything," she said. I nodded once. "I'm sure he did." Her jaw tightened slightly. "He said you threw him out over nothing." I reached for my phone, not dramatically, not defensively, just calmly. "He texted me that he wanted to break up," I said. I agreed. "That's not what he—" I turned the screen toward her. The message thread, highlighted, time-stamped, clear. Her eyes moved, read, paused, then went back slower. "That doesn't—" she started, then stopped, because there it was in his own words, not twisted, not interpreted, just written. "He said it was a test," I added quietly. Her gaze flicked up to mine. I swiped again. Another screenshot. "I was testing you." Silence. I didn't rush her, didn't fill the space, let her process, because the truth doesn't need pressure. It just needs time. "What about the rest?" she asked finally. "The harassment?" I stood up, walked to the side table, picked up a folder, and set it in front of her. "Doorbell footage," I said. "The day he threw the box." She opened it, watched, saw him angry and out of control, nothing like the version he had probably shown her. Her expression shifted, subtle but undeniable. "Gym report," I continued. "Security involvement." She flipped the page, read another, then another. "Workplace incident logs." Another shift, faster this time. "Police warning," I said. "From yesterday." Her fingers stopped, hovered over the paper, then slowly lowered. The room went quiet, not tense, not hostile, just clear, like fog lifting. She leaned back slightly and looked at me, really looked this time, not as an opponent, not as a threat, as a person. "I didn't know," she said softly. I figured. There was no anger in my voice, no need for it, because this wasn't about her. She exhaled slowly. "He told me you were unstable." I almost smiled. "Of course he did." Another silence. Then, "He said you were stalking him." That one I did smile at, a small, tired, almost amused curve of my lips. "Did it look that way to you?" I asked. She glanced around again at the stillness, the order, the absence of chaos. "No," she admitted. She sat there for a long moment, then closed the folder carefully, like it weighed more than paper. "I'm sorry," she said. "You don't owe me that." "I showed up here ready to defend him," she continued. "I thought you were the problem." "That's what he needed you to think." She nodded slowly, processing, reframing, undoing. Then she stood. "Thank you for showing me, she said. I walked her to the door. No drama, no confrontation, just an exit, but before she stepped out, she paused and turned back. "Does he know you have all this?" "Yes." "And he's still doing this?" "Yes." That seemed to land hardest because it meant something simple. This wasn't misunderstanding. It was persistence. She left. And for the first time in days, I felt something shift. Not in me, in the situation. Because now the narrative wasn't his anymore. Not fully, not cleanly, not controllably. 10 minutes later, my phone rang. Mason. Of course. I let it go to voicemail. Then another call. Ignored. Then a third. Then silence. A minute later, the voicemail came through. I played it. His voice was loud, unfiltered, cracked. "You think you're so smart, don't you?" he snapped. "Turning people against me, ruining everything." I paused it, because that was all I needed to hear. Not heartbreak, not regret, just blame. Still, after everything. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open. All the messages, all the logs, all the incidents, organized, time-stamped, clear. And for the first time, I stopped thinking of this as a situation that would resolve itself, because it wouldn't. Not naturally, not quietly, not safely. So I opened a new document and started the process. Formal, legal, final. Because some people don't understand boundaries until those boundaries are enforced by something they can't argue with, and I was done explaining. Filing for a restraining order didn't feel dramatic. It felt administrative, which in a strange way made it more real than anything else that had happened. No raised voices, no slammed doors, no emotional speeches. Just forms, dates, evidence, and the quiet acknowledgement that this wasn't going to fix itself. By the time the hearing was scheduled, I felt steady. Not nervous, not angry, just prepared. Mason was already there when I walked into the courtroom, sitting 2 rows ahead, dressed well, composed, like this was another performance. He turned when I entered. Our eyes met. For a split second, I saw it again, that expectation that I would soften, that I would hesitate, that I would look at him and remember something worth saving. I didn't. I took my seat, opened in my folder, and waited. When our case was called, everything moved quickly. Too quickly for dramatics. Too structured for manipulation. The judge didn't care about tone, feelings, or how either of us felt the relationship had gone. She cared about sequence, facts, and actions. What initiated the end of the relationship, she asked. Mason spoke first. It was a misunderstanding, he said. I didn't actually mean. The judge raised a hand. Did you send a message stating you wanted to break up? A pause. Yes, but... And did she respond by agreeing? Another pause. Yes. The judge nodded once. Everything that occurred after that is what we are evaluating. Simple. Clean. Unavoidable. My evidence was presented in order. The message thread, highlighted and time-stamped. The footage of him on my porch throwing the box, pacing, shouting. The gym report. The workplace incidents with dates, times, and descriptions. The police warning. The signs. The repeated appearances. Each piece on its own might have been explained away. Together, they formed a pattern. Mason tried. Of course he did. It was miscommunication, he said. She knew I was joking. The judge looked at him for a long moment, then asked a question that seemed almost too simple. Why would you joke about ending a relationship? Silence. Real silence this time. Not strategic, not performative, just empty. He shifted slightly, cleared his throat, then said, I was trying to see if she cared. The judge didn't react immediately. Then, that is not communication. That is manipulation. The word landed hard. I saw it. The flicker in his expression. Because once it was named, it couldn't be undone. The decision didn't take long. Based on the documented pattern of behavior, the judge said, a restraining order is granted. 500 feet, from me, from my home, from my workplace, clear boundaries, enforceable, final. That should have been the end. Legally, it was. Emotionally, not quite, because Mason didn't stop immediately. He adapted again. The messages didn't come from him anymore. They came through other people, mutual friends, ignored, returned unopened. Then his mother called once, blocked. Then new social media accounts, reported, then timing. He would show up places just as I was leaving, technically outside the 500-foot range, still watching, still trying to exist, just at the edge of the line. The final attempt was almost impressive in a detached, clinical way. He applied for a job at my company. Different department. Same building. HR flagged it immediately. Restraining order, same name, same target location. Denied. He threatened legal action. Their legal team shut it down within a day. Clean, efficient, final. After that, the noise started fading. Not all at once, but gradually, like something losing momentum, running out of fuel. Through people we both knew, I heard pieces of what came next. He lost most of his friend group, not in some dramatic fallout, just through distance. People stopped answering, stopped inviting, stopped engaging. Brittany asked him to leave her couch after the situation with Trisha. His parents made him move back home and pay rent. That part, for some reason, felt like the most real consequence of all. Structure, accountability, something he couldn't negotiate with charm or pressure. He started therapy, court-mandated, after violating the order once. He lost his job, unrelated to me, but not unrelated to his behavior. Patterns don't stay contained. They leak into everything. The last attempt at contact came 6 weeks later, not from him, from his therapist. A formal request asking if I would be open to a controlled session to help with his closure process. I read it twice, then handed it to my lawyer. The response was short, professional, final. Any closure required would happen without my involvement and within the bounds of the restraining order. 6 months later, my life is quiet. Not empty, not lonely, just stable. I go to work, I come home, I cook what I want, sleep when I want. My space feels like mine again, not curated, not negotiated, just mine. I replaced everything he insisted on bringing in, the pillows, the decorations, the things that looked good but never felt right. Now, when I walk into my apartment, it doesn't feel like a shared performance. It feels like a life. I saw his mother once at a grocery store. We both froze for a second. Then she walked over. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. I nodded. "I know." She hesitated. "He's working on himself. I hope that helps him." She studied my face for a moment, then said something that stayed with me longer than I expected. "He knows he messed up. The testing thing." I almost smiled. "It's done," I said. "We've both moved on." She nodded softly. "You were good for him." Past tense, exactly where it belonged. And that was it. No dramatic reunion, no final confrontation, no emotional closure scene, just distance and clarity. He tested the relationship by threatening to end it. I responded by accepting it. He expected me to fight, to beg, to prove something. Instead, I listened and acted accordingly. If someone needs to threaten to leave to feel loved, they're not asking for love, they're asking for control. And the moment you stop playing along, the test fails. Not for you, for them. My only regret is that I should have answered honestly the first time he tried it. Not the 5th, not the 10th, the first. Because the truth is simple. If someone wants to stay, they don't make you prove it. And if they turn love into a game, the only way to win is not to play at all.